Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Should You Buy, the first impression show from yours truly, Anchorman V2, and this week we're going to be talking about Darksiders 3. Coming from the ashes of the death of THQ and over 6 years of waiting, we finally have Darksiders 3 ready for you guys to play, and let's get started. So, the story picks up kind of in between the tutorial of Darksiders 1 and the main game. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, in Darksiders 1 you have War, who gets accused of starting the apocalypse, and he gets banished by the Charred Council, and they basically stick him away for 100 years as punishment, and then he has to go and solve who really actually caused the apocalypse. But this game takes place in between that time frame of the 100 years, kind of alongside Darksiders 2, but this one is centered mostly on Earth. The Fury is sent to Earth by the Charred Council in search of the 7 deadly sins. That's it. That is the story. It's not too complicated. There is some character development here and there, and there's bigger things at play, but the overarching story is pretty basic. You don't even particularly care about War. It's just more of like an afterthought. She kind of taunts him a little bit, and you just kind of move on from there. So the graphics in Darksiders 3, for this section of these reviews, I normally do we talk about the resolution, but honestly, I'm going to stop doing that. Mainly just because in this generation, we've kind of range all over the place. Every system has different resolution, and just depending what you're playing on depends what resolution you're going to get. This game is at a 30 frames per second on console, and that's just across the board. In terms of hiccups, I've seen some texture pop in. I'm playing on the Xbox One X. I saw a little bit, not much, maybe worse on the other systems. I'm not quite sure. I will say one of the standout parts of this game is the color work. It is absolutely stellar. It's definitely better than the other titles because the color palette on Darksiders 1 and 2 was really kind of dull and toned down, but this one has bright neon sections, which are interesting, but it fits in that world. It's an earlier part of the apocalypse that makes sense, but it looks good. I like it. Other than that, it's not really graphically impressive. It's probably closer to the beginning of a generation title, like a launch title, in terms of its actual graphical quality. It's not anything to you get upset about or to really write home about either. But anyway, graphics are okay. So the gameplay for Darksiders is a very interesting thing. When Darksiders 1 came out in 2010, it was kind of following this Legend of Zelda formula to it, and people criticized that. And then 2 years later, whenever Darksiders 2 came out, they kind of went after God of War, which was kind of funny. Darksiders 3 is doing the same exact kind of deal, except it's kind of chasing more of the Dark Souls kind of vibe. So this game, Darksiders 3, is a 3D Metroidvania action game with a Souls-esque mechanic aspect to it. What I mean by that is like they have their own Estus flask where you have to stop and heal yourself. They call it Nephilim's Respite. The focus is more on dodging than blocking, where in the other games you can kind of tank hits, and as you killed people you could heal yourself automatically. It wasn't a big deal, but this time those green souls that you collect, you actually have to use the Nephilim's Respite to get that health back. When you die, you lose your experience, and you have to go find it again if you die. And enemies do reset upon your death, so it's not like you just clear them out and you're done. So there are upgrades in the games. What you do is you deposit your souls to Vulgrim, who is back in the game for your levels. You can also get upgrades and little things through him. You can also go to the Maker's Forge if you want to buff up your weapons a little bit more or have some mods on top of those. Throughout the game, you're not so much focused on the weapons that you get as much as the elements you get access to. You can see through Fury, her hair changes colors depending on what element she's kind of attuned into. And they give you different gameplay benefits, like you get the Chains of Scorn, which are the fire element. You can do like a double jump, and you can do a charge jump, which gives you more height. You can get the lightning, and you can kind of hover for a bit. There's different benefits to both, and you get different benefits really just across the board. Now, this game is a little more boss-focused than the other ones, namely because, well, in Darksiders 1 and 2, you had big major boss fights, and those were definitely a big standout of those games. This one is more grounded focus in terms of the boss fights. Like, you're not doing anything earth-shatteringly crazy. It's not like fighting the worm or something like that. It's fun, but it is grounded. Like, you're not breaking the bank here in terms of graphics here, so they're not really pushing it too far. So this game, when it launched, they had one setting called the default setting, and with that one, it was definitely more of a Souls focus, and it really kind of turned off a lot of people. So since then, back in December, they added a new mode. They call it Classic, which changes how the gameplay is done. I play on Classic just because I do like the old Darksiders games. To give you, I mean, what you're really picking here. If you go with default, you're gonna have longer animations, and you have to commit to your moves. So like if you do an attack and you see someone attacking, you can't cancel that attack and go to a dodge or something like that. Whenever you're healing, you stop, you pull out your Nephilim's Respite, and you have to do your thing and you have to wait until you're healed. The classic version of this is it's more of a you can cancel into a dodge. So you can't like cancel into an attack or something else. If you choose to do an attack, you can cancel and move that into a dodge. You can instantly use items that you pick up, so you don't have to wait to use them. So the fun factor. This continues the tradition of great rebound games. Like I say, you're playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You've been playing that game for a good long time. You need a break. Darksiders is that kind of franchise. I also thought it was a really good introduction to the Souls mechanic. If you don't understand why people like Souls games, this is the kind of game for you, honestly. If you get the idea, you'll go into fights and battles, and you'll die, and you'll die, and you'll die. But when you finally beat them, you'll give your little fist pump action, and you'll be ready to go, and you'll be excited about moving on to the next boss. The other part too is the Seven Deadly Sins are. I love the character designs and the discovery of what the sins representations were. I also really enjoyed as well, because in this lore, what they do with the Seven Deadly Sins is they inhabit the bodies of mortals, and they pervert whatever it is. And it's really cool seeing those designs and finding out, okay, what's the interpretation of lust in this world? So now down to the final question, price. Like I said, this is a great rebound game. It's a good pick up and play pacing for short or long bursts. I've really enjoyed it. It's a lot more like a new take on the gameplay. Kind of like a standalone DLC. Like, it's not drastically different, but it has enough of a new flair to it that makes it seem less like its own game. But I mean, hey, I think if you find the game for $30, it's well worth the money to pick it up for 30. I say go for it. How does it stack up in terms of the other games? I like this game a good bit. I don't like it as much as Darksiders 1, but it's just kind of just under Darksiders 1, but I think it is significantly better than Darksiders 2. Those are my thoughts on Darksiders 3. Let me know in the comments section if you think about picking it up, and I will see you guys next week.